The kid nobody watched was not breaking passwords at 2 a.m. He was learning that a donor list could be worth more than stolen credit cards. In this world, the real code was not Python or malware, but cancer letters, veterans robocalls, and tiny asks like $10. A fake charity can look cleaner than a street scam because it wears a tax form, a logo, and the language of public service. That is why more than $87 million could be pulled from donors in one major sham cancer charity case before many people saw the machine. This story works only if you stop picturing a hoodie, a dark room, and a giant screen full of green text. Picture direct mail, telemarketing, emotional letters, social posts, and payment links that look almost real enough to trust in 1 second. Picture a cause nobody wants to question, like cancer, wounded veterans, children, disaster relief, animals, or religious aid after a storm. And picture one ugly lesson learned early: fear and pity can move money faster than almost any honest sales pitch. The smart fraud operator does not start with hacking a bank. He starts by hacking attention, guilt, and trust. He learns that donors are not just names but habits, and habits can be bought, reused, sorted, and called again. That is why the real business in charity fraud is solicitation, which means getting the ask in front of the right heart. Once you see that, every letter, cold call, and copied logo starts to look less like charity and more like a system. The system has several versions, and each one hides behind a different kind of paper wall. Some fake charities are fully invented nonprofits with no real mission, no real help, and no honest path for donations. Some are legal entities on paper that exist long enough to mail letters, cash checks, and report almost nothing useful. Some are high-overhead fundraising machines that claim one mission in public while most money flows to fundraisers, insiders, and perks. Some appear after hurricanes, fires, wars, or hospital crises because disaster makes people act before they verify anything. And some are copycats that borrow a real charity's tone, logo, or name and only change one word. That one-word trick matters because a donor in a hurry might read Veterans Hope Fund instead of Veterans Help Fund. A small mix-up like that can turn sympathy into a payment before doubt ever has time to wake up. Now the darker part starts, because this crime does not hurt only one group. It hits donors who thought $20 would buy care, medicine, transport, or food for a real person. It hits cancer patients, veterans, children, and families who were named in the pitch, but received little or nothing. It hits honest charities that lose trust when the public hears another story about fake patient care or fake veteran aid. And it hits public trust itself because each scandal teaches people to shut their wallets when the next real crisis comes. That wide damage is what makes fake charity schemes colder than many ordinary hustle stories. A fake sneaker seller steals from one buyer, but a fake cancer charity can poison giving for an entire town. To understand how the machine works, start with the easiest lever of all: sympathy. A stranger calling about children with cancer can make a $15 ask feel so small that checking becomes awkward. That small ask trick is powerful because $10 feels too tiny to investigate and too kind to refuse. Then comes urgency, the second lever, because urgency kills the pause where people would normally ask for proof. A robocall about wounded veterans needing help this week is built to stop the listener from waiting until tomorrow. Add patriotic language, medical language, and a copycat name, and the ask starts wearing moral armor. Once a donor gives one time, donor inertia enters, and that means giving again feels easier than saying no. That is why old donor lists are gold in this business, even when the first campaign was weak. A person who mailed $25 for cancer relief in March may be called again in April for veterans. He may then get a letter in June about animals, a text in August about disaster relief, and a social ad in October. The cause can change, but the habit stays. And habit is the quiet fuel behind repeat solicitation. This is where the operation starts looking less like chaos and more like a cold factory. The product is not kindness, and it is not healing. The product is donor acquisition at scale. Get enough names, enough scripts, enough payment links, and enough believable paperwork, and the engine can keep running. That paperwork matters because legal theater is one of the strongest costumes in fake charity crime. A registration, a seal, a tax phrase, or a board-sounding title can make a hollow group look official. But a real-looking entity is not the same as a real mission, and that gap is where fraud grows. The key line is not waste versus efficiency, it is truth versus material misrepresentation. A clumsy charity may spend too much on overhead and still be real. Fraud begins when the group lies about where donations go, what tax status it has, or who it actually helps. Fraud also begins when impact claims, beneficiary numbers, ratings, or affiliations are dressed up to push more giving. If a caller says your gift will directly help disabled veterans, but most money goes elsewhere, that is not just ugly. If a website says your donation pays for patient care, but insiders and vendors take the lion's share, that lie matters. Now look at one of the biggest public examples, because the numbers show the scale better than any warning slogan. In the sham cancer charities case, regulators allege that 4 groups bilked donors out of more than $87 million. 2 of those entities alone accounted for more than $75 million, which shows how large a fake mission can become. The public face was cancer, one of the strongest emotional causes in direct mail and telemarketing. The alleged reality was that the overwhelming majority of donations helped operators, friends, families, and professional fundraisers, not cancer patients. That gap between promise and use is the center of the whole story. The crime is not only that money moved, it is that trust was converted into revenue through false meaning. Another case shows the pattern even more clearly because the math is so blunt. In the Help the Vets case, around 95% of donations allegedly went to fundraising, administrative costs, and operator compensation. The people named in the pitch were wounded or disabled veterans, but the money mostly fed the machine asking for more money. That case produced a judgment over $20 million, which tells you how serious the alleged deception became. Then there was another veterans-related scheme built around robocalls and donated property. Callers asked for cars, boats, real estate, and timeshares, promising the gifts would help veterans and be tax-deductible. But the named entities in that case were alleged not to be real tax-exempt charities at all. So the operation was not only emotional, it also borrowed the language of tax law to look safer. This is why fake charity fraud can beat ordinary scams in the respectability game. A fake online store looks risky after one glance, but a fake veterans group can sound civic, lawful, and grateful. That image laundering is one reason these schemes survive longer than people expect. They do not shout crime. They whisper duty, service, and compassion. Now imagine how a young operator, or any unknown face, could grow inside that system without drawing much suspicion. He would not need genius code or a giant cyber team. He would need donor lists, tested scripts, emotional copy, and a steady way to keep the paperwork looking alive. He would learn which causes convert best, which age groups answer landlines, and which tiny asks produce repeat gifts. He would learn that a $15 first gift can open a 12-month stream of calls, mailers, and renewals. He would learn that one copied logo, one near-match name, and one urgent story can cut doubt in half. He would also learn the darkest lesson of all. The mission is often only the wrapper. The real asset is the audience, because donor attention can be recycled longer than any single campaign. That is why list recycling sits at the heart of believable big-money charity fraud. A list from a cancer appeal can feed a veterans push, and a veterans push can feed a disaster pop-up. A disaster pop-up can then push names into a religious aid letter or an animal rescue post. Every cycle trains the next one, because the operator sees who pays by check, who clicks links, and who answers calls. The methods may look old, but they adapt fast to new tools. Today, the warning signs include AI-written solicitation copy that sounds polished enough to pass a quick skim. They include fake social accounts that repost real charity imagery and clone branding that looks nearly identical on a phone screen. They include lookalike payment handles that swap one letter and still catch a rushed donor after payday. They include strange payment methods like gift cards, odd wallet links, or channels that honest charities rarely push that hard. They also include high-pressure asks that refuse normal questions about program spending, tax status, or beneficiary numbers. And when a caller cannot provide verifiable details, the performance starts cracking under even basic light. That is one place where real and fake often split apart fast. An honest group can usually explain what percentage goes to programs, how the money moves, and how the tax deduction works. A fake group often dodges, rushes, flatters, or redirects because details are the enemy of emotional conversion. That phrase matters, because emotional conversion is what this machine is built to maximize. A salesperson wants a close, but a fake charity operator wants a moral close. He wants the donor to feel that delay is selfish and proof checking is somehow less noble than immediate giving. That is why the scripts lean on cancer, veterans, children, and disasters instead of neutral causes. Those causes lower skepticism, raise urgency, and make hesitation feel almost rude. The more urgent the cause sounds, the less likely the donor is to inspect the wiring underneath. Now we have to talk about law, because this is not just bad manners wrapped in a nonprofit voice. The charge list can reach wire fraud, mail fraud, tax fraud, and telemarketing violations. It can also reach self-dealing, false advertising, theft by deception, record-keeping fraud, and civil asset recovery. That long list tells you something important about the machine. A fake charity often breaks rules in layers because money, messaging, records, and tax claims are all tied together. If the mail piece lies, the telemarketing script lies, and the tax deduction pitch lies, each part adds new risk. And because many groups solicit across state lines, federal and state authorities can both take interest. State attorneys general, tax agencies, consumer regulators, and criminal prosecutors may all touch the same case from different angles. That pressure is one reason some operators keep just enough paperwork to look less naked on first inspection. They do not aim for true transparency, they aim for survivable appearance. They want enough forms, enough mission language, and enough public-facing polish to avoid early collapse. That is why reputation laundering is such a useful phrase for this crime. The operator launders public image through logos, because language, smiling photos, and words like foundation, relief, or support. He wants the donor to see care, not cash flow. But the math always returns if somebody follows the money long enough. When 95% goes to fundraising, admin, and compensation, the mission becomes a prop. When 4 sham cancer charities collect more than $87 million, the scale stops looking accidental. When fake veterans groups use robocalls to seek cars, boats, real estate, and timeshares, the ambition becomes obvious. And when those named entities are not real tax-exempt charities, even the legal costume begins to fall apart. There is another hidden reason these cases are so effective. People often know how to doubt a stranger asking for bank details, but they do not know how to doubt a cause. A donor may mistrust a random text about crypto in 2 seconds. That same donor may trust a soft voice talking about children with cancer because the topic itself feels sacred. That is the theft at the center of fake charity fraud. The operator steals not just dollars, but the protective glow around real suffering. He borrows the moral weight of illness, service, faith, or disaster and turns it into conversion fuel. That is why even a very small lie matters in this space. A false rating, a padded beneficiary number, or a fake affiliation can pull in thousands of people who never meet. And because those donors rarely see the beneficiaries, the fraud can keep breathing longer than it should. Distance is part of the design. The donor is far from the patient, far from the veteran, and far from the actual books. All he hears is the script, and the script is built to feel closer than the truth. So how does someone protect himself when every scammer now has cleaner tools and faster design? Start with names, because copycat naming is one of the cheapest tricks and one of the most effective. Then check the tax status, because real claims about deductions should match real records. Ask what percentage goes to programs, because honest groups should not panic at basic use of funds questions. Slow down on urgent asks after fires, storms, or wars, because crisis pop-ups feed on speed. And never trust pressure that says a real cause gives no time for verification. A real child with cancer is not helped by a fake website taking rushed payments through a look-alike handle. A real veteran is not helped by a robocall promising tax deductions through a group that is not tax-exempt. A real animal rescue is not helped by cloned branding on a social page with no verifiable details. That simple check matters because fake charity crime grows where kindness outruns verification. The most believable version of this story, then, is not a mastermind typing in a basement. It is a founder, maybe young, maybe bland, maybe never suspected, learning that the money is in solicitation. He studies direct mail, cold calls, emotional letters, social posts, and donor recycling more than any real relief work. He learns how to sound lawful without being lawful, and how to sound urgent without being true. He learns that a good cause can be treated like a sales funnel if nobody stops him. And if that sounds colder than hacking, it should. Breaking into a server takes technical skill, but breaking into public trust can damage 4 groups at once. It damages the donor, the intended beneficiary, the honest charity, and the public's faith in giving itself. That last loss is the hardest one to measure and maybe the most expensive. When people hear one more story about fake cancer aid or fake veterans relief, real groups pay the price later. The next honest fundraiser has to work under a shadow created by people who hollowed out the mission for cash. So the kid nobody suspected was never the whole story. The bigger story was a system where donor acquisition, emotional conversion, and list recycling became the real business model. The ugliest part of fake charity crime is that it steals from four groups at once: donors, intended patients or veterans, real nonprofits, and the public trust that honest aid needs. That is why charges like wire fraud, mail fraud, tax fraud, and telemarketing violations can pile up around a founder who keeps just enough paperwork to look legal. A donor who hears one emotional cancer letter may give $10 once, but donor inertia means the same name can be hit again and again for months. Copycat names work because they sound close to real groups, and cloned logos or look-alike payment handles can make a fake page feel safe for one more hurried click. In scam terms, the real product was never charity itself. It was solicitation, list recycling, and emotional conversion dressed in patriotic, medical, and tax-deductible language. Once that clicks, the fake letters, cloned logos, robocalls, and tiny asks all line up into one machine. And the machine keeps turning until someone compares the promise to the actual flow of money.